Hello students, I'm back again. I'm back again with your new session, with the new lesson. The name of the lesson is An Unlikely Punishment. I'll come to the lesson, but before that, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Now, how would you make your friend realize his or her mistake? Now, we are not talking about serious kinds of mistakes or crimes or anything. I'm just talking about in personal life, in your student life, normally small little things, small little tips that happen between friends. Like maybe he or she took your pen, notebook, or book without asking, or maybe hidden it, or maybe you were both working on a project and you were sharing the work and your friend forgot to do his bit or her bit. So what would you do? Would you just start a fight, like and really ugly fight, and spoil your friendship, or you will think out of the box and think of a nobler kind way in which you can make your friend realize his or her mistake, and your kindness, can also will also not harm your friendship. So think about it, give reasons for your answer. Now, before I start with the introduction of the lesson, I have to confess something. Now, this lesson is again an extract from the novel, which is written by a French writer. Now, in the lesson, he has used some very typical French names, which I have tried to, master their pronunciation. But if I mess the pronunciation, please forgive me for that because I'm working upon it. By the time we meet in person, I will master all these pronunciations. All right, so let's start our lesson with the introduction. Now, as I told you, this is an extract from the novel Les Miserables, which is written by a French writer, Victor Hugo. Now, the story is about the main character, the protagonist, Jean Valjean, who was sentenced for 19 years for stealing just a loaf of bread. And that also not for himself. He stole it for to feed his sister's hungry children. Now, the whole of the novel depicts his long struggle to create a simple life for himself after he is released from prison. Now, in the next session, I will send you a link for the video as well as for the movie, so you can enjoy it then. Now, Victor Hugo is trying to convey us that the justice system was very unfair and unjust in France at that time. Worst criminals like murderers, they got very less punishment, but people who committed petty small crimes like even just mere stealing a loaf of bread were given worst punishment, just like our main character. And believe me, long years of living in a prison, solitary, alone, away from the family, changes a person. And that's what happened with John. He was once a very sweet and humble man, but now he was changed to a mean and bitter person. Now we come to the author, Victor Hugo. A poet, a novelist, a dramatist, Victor Hugo was an extraordinary writer who was known and appreciated not just in France but all over the world. The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Miserables are two of his most read works. These have also been widely produced as musicals. Now we come to the characters. Jean Valjean. He grew up in poverty, and after the death of his parents, his sister looked after him. And after his sister's death, he decided to look after her 7 children. He took their responsibility, and even he stole a loaf of bread, and he was sentenced for 19 years for that small crime. And after his release from the jail, under the unfortunate circumstances, he meets Bishop, the priest of that area, who treated him with utmost respect and care. And Jean was seen holding himself in a dignified manner while he was keeping his family alive. Although Jean could have left and found a job in a possible better place and started a family of his own, but he decided to stay back and look after his sister's children, as he wanted to pay back his sister as she raised him when their mother could not. Now we all know Any kind of stealing, small, big, even which has a moral, is not right. But for some reason, Jean's stealing, the reason behind his stealing, possessed moral qualities. He cared more for his sister's children than for himself. And while he was stealing the loaf of the bread, the only thought was in his mind was that the children can at least have a food for one day. And when he was going to prison, then also he was most upset that he has let his family down. And during his stay in the prison, he was worried about his children only, that how they were managing without him. Now we come to Bishop. When faced with concepts like crime and punishment, most of us, what we would say, that the person who has committed a crime should be punished according to the law. But the act of generosity and kindness portrayed by Bishop in order to save Jean, especially when his sins were, proved, it totally changed Jean's attitude towards life. He decided to live his life as a redeemed man. The bishop, who represented Christ and the church, acted generously and nobly. Though his act was morally and ethically questionable. But, he lied to the police. But this act led to a great change in Jean's life. It acted as a catalyst for him being a good person altogether again. And all through his life, then he took great decisions. Just because of that one act of kindness by the bishop. Bishop taught us that punishment can be done in a kind and noble way. Everyone should be given a chance to start a new, honest life. Now we come to the summary of the lesson. Victor Hugo's tale of injustice, heroism, and love follows the fortunes of Jean Valjean, an escaped convict determined to put his criminal past behind him. But he attempts to become a respected member of the community. But that is all put under threat constantly because people were not welcoming. They were not ready to accept him as a member of the society. Now, the story begins in 19th century France. Jean, after spending 19 years in jail, he came out. Now, everybody knew that he had a criminal past. Nobody was ready to even talk to him, and he roamed from town to town looking for work, but only to have doors shut in his face. Bishop's house. Like this only he reached Bishop's house, which had no lock on his door. And Bishop was very kind, and he greeted him, welcomed him in his home. He fed him, gave him food, and while he was eating, Jean saw all kinds of silver things on the dining table. And Jean was also taken aback by the behavior of Bishop, the kind behavior. Because everyone has distrusted him because of his criminal past. But Jean was restless, as the thought of silverware on Bishop's table obsessed him. Those solid pieces of silver could easily fetch him 200 francs. Now the ugly thought of stealing started haunting him. Jean decided to steal the silver at night when the house was silent. He took out a short iron bar from his knapsack, a small bag that he was carrying with his belongings. And stealthily, very quietly, secretly, he moved towards the bishop's bedroom. As Jean stood over the bishop's bed, he raised his stick to murder him. And what he was deciding at that time, that he would murder the bishop and he would run away with the silver. Jean's arms wouldn't move and obey him. He surmised, means he thought for a minute, that he could spare the bishop and take the silver. Now, you must be thinking, was Jean caught? Of course he was caught. The next morning, the bishop greeted the housekeeper as usual, and the housekeeper asked about the guest who was there at night and who was not to be found in the morning. And also, along with the guest, the silverware has also vanished. So, just then, 3 policemen came